Well, I mean, it's clearly very disturbing. This is Donald Trump's revenge tour, and we're worried also for what's next. We've been communicating with Senator Schiff, for example, from my home state of California, and this idea that you have the president essentially turning the Department of Justice into his own personal vendetta force, where he goes out for anyone that he believes has wronged him, is highly disturbing. This is something that every single American should be concerned about and engage with. He clearly has a revenge agenda for this country. He's going to continue to go after folks that he believes have wronged him. And it's more than just that, because we know that most of these cases, and hopefully all these cases, won't stand actually in court. This is also about intimidation. This is about letting other folks know across the country, members of Congress, governors, folks that might stand up to him, letting them know that if you wrong the president in some way, he is going to turn the Department of Justice against you. He is going to go after you. So it's clearly a very dangerous moment for the country, and one that should remind us again why it's so important that we limit Donald Trump's power, that we win in 2026, and that we, for once and for all, eliminate the threat that Donald Trump poses to this country by winning these elections.
I want to follow up on what you just said there, Congressman. What have you heard from Senator Schiff? How is he processing this right now? We saw today the stories that we've been covering about John Bolton hitting the streets now, that he's next up. The administration, at least some of its minions, have already put out indications that the senator could be next. What are you hearing from the senator? What's his concern? I love the sound of him standing firmly in the space and saying, "I'm not bowed nor afraid." But how does that translate for him?
We're actually just communicating earlier. A group of us from the California delegation, we're actually have been communicating with Senator Schiff. He knows that we have his back, but he is unafraid. Just to be very clear, he is not going to stop his criticism of the administration and really his forceful defense of our country and our Constitution. And the idea that Donald Trump is going to try to target him, to target Attorney General James in New York, this is unprecedented as it relates to the future of this country and our Constitution and the separation of powers. I mean, the very foundation of who we are as a country is under attack. And so it is a serious moment for this country. And I hope people understand that this requires us all to be engaged. And I think so many folks I've talked to just in the last few days, I've had conversations with people that have been a little bit disengaged since the election, just honestly just trying to recover from that election. And they're finally getting back engaged. They're finally saying this is enough. They're standing up. They're going to protest. They're getting engaged. They're being loud. They're rewatching the news again. And so Americans have to understand that if we're not in this fight right now, they're going to steamroll.
Here we go again. We come on the air this afternoon with breaking news again. In the last 15 minutes, we have learned that John Bolton, former national security advisor turned sharp critic of Donald Trump, is expected to be the subject of a complaint or even an indictment as early as next week. MSNBC, citing two sources, is reporting exclusively that the acting U.S. attorney in Maryland is moving forward quickly to seek criminal charges against Bolton. They reportedly relate to claims that he improperly kept classified national security information in his Maryland home. His home was searched in August. Bolton's lawyer insists that his client, John Bolton, did nothing improper. It is the second instance of targeting a prominent Trump critic in 2 days, and the third in the past 2 weeks. It certainly fuels the perception that Donald Trump is deliberately making his way down a to-do list having to do with his promise of political retribution. It is where we begin today with former Department of Justice pardon attorney Liz Oyer. She was fired by Trump's Justice Department in March. Also joining us, former Assistant Special Agent in charge at the FBI, MSNBC National Security and Intelligence Analyst Michael Feinberg. He's also a fellow at Lawfare. Also joining us, NYU law professor, MSNBC legal analyst Melissa Murray. And with me at the table, investigative reporter for the New York Times, Mike Schmidt is here. Michael Feinberg, I want to start with you because I think there will be a reflexive instinct to dive immediately into the facts, which is an important part of anything that all of us do. But I do think that the forest is perhaps more newsworthy at the moment. This is the third stated enemy of Donald Trump indicted in less than 2 weeks. There is clearly direction, and because Donald Trump mistakenly posted it on social media instead of in the DM where he planned to send it, according to reporting in the Wall Street Journal, that he wanted, quote, Pam to move quickly with his targeted enemies.
Yeah, that's very true. And I've heard from a couple of different sources that with respect to the Letitia James indictment, that the acting U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia did not even notify the Maine Justice Department that she was doing it this week. They were expecting it to happen next week. So that sort of at least implies she was communicating or taking orders from somebody other than her direct chain of command at DOJ. The alacrity with which the Bolton complaint or indictment is moving forward is also a little bit alarming, because normally in a case involving the mishandling of classified information, you have to do something called an original classification authority determination, where you take the supposedly classified information, you send it to the owning agency, and they make a determination about whether it is in fact classified. That is a process that usually takes months, and it is something beyond the control and outside of the Department of Justice's chain of command. So I don't see how they could have gotten that OCA classification without direct intervention from the White House ordering the other agencies to speed up the usual process.
That's a fascinating thing that certainly at least someone like yourself would be able to flag for us. I want to ask you about John Bolton's sort of arc as a national security figure. I worked in the Bush administration. He was the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, politically a polarizing figure in both parties. He became a sharp critic of Donald Trump's, and that might be the most familiar that many of my viewers are with him. But in the middle, there was an effort by Bill Barr to prosecute him or to stop the publication of a book. And one of the things he wrote about in his book called The Room Where It Happens was the issue over which Donald Trump is indicted the first time.
What everyone knows, which is that he has been vowing these type of revenge prosecutions. But even Donald Trump also has understood and even learned in the first term about where the limits might be, and that you don't necessarily want to admit that you're building revenge political cases that turn on the people rather than the criminal evidence, if there is any. And if it seems like we're ending the week with more news about Donald Trump on a tear, that's because we are. If you're trying to keep it straight or you've been busy and not following every domino, just this week, the DOJ indicted the top law enforcement official in New York, Attorney General Letitia James, who had previously run a civil case, no threat of jail time there, but a civil enforcement action against Trump org. So now the DOJ has taken formal legal steps using the criminal investigative powers it has against 6 people that Donald Trump perceives as foes. You have the indictments, you have the grand jury going forward on Bolton, you have a subpoena for another individual who did oversee a case against Trump, D.A. Willis. You have the charges, remember, against the New Jersey mayor, which were so weak they were dropped, that case never going to trial. And you have Democratic Congressman McIver, who we heard from on this very program this week. So it's adding up. James and Comey have said they are innocent, and this is no time to be scared.
This is nothing more than a continuation of the president's desperate weaponization of our justice system. He is forcing federal law enforcement agencies to do his bidding, all because I did my job.
There are costs to standing up to Donald Trump, but we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. We will not live on our knees.
Mr. Comey, who has proven controversial for a range of reasons, striking a note that now may be heard by other Trump allies or former allies like John Bolton, that when you face this kind of crackdown, this kind of alleged selective prosecution, that's one of the arguments they're making to try to get these cases tossed, you have to be strong, not fearful. And for those who think that the president might have stopped just at Comey or just at a Democrat in New York, well, tonight's reporting that he is moving quickly through his DOJ to go at someone who worked in the highest levels of the White House for Donald Trump shows that no one appears to be safe, and that may be exactly the message this president wants to send. Jason, I want to go to you first based on our understanding of what's happening, that this is more of a story about politics or politics infusing the DOJ to a degree that might be unlawful, rather than a traditional legal story, although Emily, I'm sure, will give us some legal analysis on the strength of these cases. Do you, I guess, Jason, agree with that premise? And what do you see here happening politically as Donald Trump is sending a message clearly across the bow, even to his own former aides, John Bolton, the longtime neocon Republican?
All right, I don't know why anybody should be surprised. I mean, Donald Trump has never been loyal to anyone. He has a list of people that he has taken advantage of, a list of people he's lied to. I mean, he did nothing when people were threatening to kill his vice president.
So, folks, Trump is bringing charges against yet another one of his enemies. Now, you got to make it clear that of the three, he's probably the least sympathetic. John Bolton, what he's done on behalf of American capitalist imperialism, he is an awful man. He is. Much like a lot of the people from the Bush era, they probably should be facing criminal charges at The Hague. Just you know, like a lot of, like, that's my view. So this guy has probably done some evil stuff, but it's the same kind of evil, you know, war crimes Donald Trump did, like what he did with Iran, right? Like, but he's being charged, at least this is reportedly, for stuff that he has no business being charged for. At least that's my interpretation. And all of this is happening because these people are enemies of Trump. At least they're perceived enemies. I don't even, like, you know, two of the three of them are conservatives. One of them worked in Trump's cabinet before, worked in Trump's administration, excuse me. And another one of them, again, Comey, was essential for Trump actually becoming president. It doesn't matter. This is one thing you need to understand. People, guys, send this to any Trump relatives you have. This is essential to understanding fascism in general and Trump in particular. The circle must always, always, always shrink. Always. Because the conspiracy, the hatred, the intolerance, the prejudice, it always hits the outsiders first, right? So, you know, in Germany, you know, first they came for, and I didn't speak up, you know, first communist and socialist. But like, the reality is, there's always going to be another. There's always going to be someone that a right-wing, far-right, you know, regime has to treat as different, treat as the group to be scapegoated. And so with Trump, you see it. Of course, it started with his, you know, people across the aisle, but look how already it's moved beyond his ideological enemies, and he's targeting fellow conservatives. He will never stop. You will always be next. Some people have already, like, if you're, like, for example, an African American watching this, you've already been, like, right? If you're trans or what have you. But, like, even if you're a rich white conservative, if you're not billionaire rich, he will eventually come for you. It's only a matter of time.